Hi, I'm Weerasuriya. I'm the co-founder of Ready Studios and the creative director of Lone Echo and Echo Arena.
So let's start by talking about Lone Echo. What were the inspirations for that VR experience?
The inspiration there was really actually something quite simple. It was the movement model. Unlike many other games that start maybe with a character or a story, this started purely from a design mechanic, and that design mechanic was how to move in VR. And as soon as we had that locked in, we realized that we could build a whole game around it.
What does zero G open up when it comes to movement, especially with the Oculus Touch controllers?
Well, movement has always been, I think, a little bit of a big barrier for a lot of people as far as comfortability is concerned for VR. What we decided to do was trying to find a way to break that barrier. If we really wanted VR to become prevalent out in the player, for the players out there, we wanted to break that barrier so that people didn't feel uncomfortable playing. So what our movement model and zero G did was allow players to actually have 6 degrees of freedom, being able to move everywhere possible, go touch anything possible in our game, but still feel kind of that comfort that you have when you're playing a regular game or even in real life.
Now, this started as a single player experience. Talk a little about how multiplayer came to play.
So interestingly enough, for us, single player was always the focus when we started the project. And as we kept on working on it, we realized that movement model had so much traction that we wanted to see it would be really fun, if two people actually were able to do this together. But we didn't know what it would mean. What was it that movement model, that exploration, the zero G would actually bring together? And there was a time when it was back in OC2. I think we went to see a toy box from Oculus. And for the first time, we had this reaction of seeing somebody else in front of you, passing you something, and literally somebody handing you something with their hands. And although they're virtual characters, you felt their presence better than you've ever felt it in any other game. And as soon as we saw that, we kind of realized, okay, from here on, that social interaction needs to be everything for us. And it started from a few demos that we built. Some worked, some failed. But ultimately, it evolved into this kind of competitive, cooperative arena sport game that basically involves the social aspect, but as well as the competitive aspect of VR.
Talk a little about the cooperative, competitive aspect of this game. Talk about, you got two teams up to 3 players on each side.
Actually, so the Echo Arena plays with 2 teams up to 5 players on each side. And the fun part about it is that you will see as soon as you enter the social lobby, which is actually where all the players gather, you'll see already the social interaction. The teams actually will be there in different colors. You'll be able to kind of talk to each other. You'll be able to play a little bit, test out a few things. But as soon as you jump out in the game, you actually realize that beyond just the competitive aspect of a sport, you have this kind of innate thing that you don't often find except for voice over IP on other games. You have a full body presence. So suddenly your motion becomes part of the gameplay that you're there. What you would naturally do in a sport game, wave your hand to ask somebody to pass you the ball. Here you would wave your hand to ask somebody to pass you the disc. So this whole VR immersion actually brings another level of kind of communication that you normally don't find where most games actually rely only on audio, oftentimes to basically bring that connection.
How much exercise is a typical game going to give players?
How much exercise on this one? Oh, physically, I will tell you that at the beginning when you start playing, you kind of don't do much. You try to restrain yourself because you don't know how much it would help you. But I will tell you that nowadays we play matches all the time, day in and day out, and we get tired. I mean, it's a workout. I mean, you have to have your full body there. You have to duck. You have to basically kind of get low when you want to evade somebody who's trying to get to you. You want to reach out when you need to grab the disc that's a little far away. You can jump, and you would actually emulate that pretty much in the game. So it gives you a pretty good workout.
What's the typical length of time? How have you guys designed the actual game?
The game actually plays in very short bursts. So what we wanted to do is to make sure that it wasn't this kind of dragged on game, that it was intense, but in a short amount of time. So within 5 minutes, you'll basically play a game, and you'll really get that sense of that time is ticking. It doesn't stop as you keep on playing. It stops only when you score a goal. But there's this sense of rush as soon as you start, knowing that clock is in front of you and you don't have much time basically to go through the whole game.
Can you talk about how designing this for anyone to jump in, but then the skill-based level for those who really get into it?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely important, especially looking at VR today, that we open this experience to everybody that actually is going to be in there in VR. So we wanted to make a game that, number one, is attainable by pretty much anybody that jumps in. As soon as you kind of start floating around in zero G, you kind of get your bearings. As soon as you give somebody the disc, their natural reaction is basically just throw it, right? And so those two things will already build the game far enough for most people to just keep on having just endless of hours of fun. But then you will see from, for example, the team playing and the QA guys and the developers actually at the studio playing, you'll see that there's tactics now building up. Like people are able to judge the trajectory of the disc from really far away and boost themselves, from really far to basically intercept it. You will see people basically juke. That means they will be rushing towards the goal, and an enemy would come towards you, and that enemy has the potential to hit you in the face to disable you. But you see players that actually have already figured out a way to juke the disc from hand to hand, while at the same time juking with the head to evade somebody. So you got all these little subtle tactics that start building up that you realize at the beginning you don't get, but the more you play, it really becomes a game of skill. And I would even say, like in some ways, like more of a sport in so many ways, because of the fact that it requires a lot more than just button presses, but it requires your whole body and full presence to be there.
The co-founder of VSL during Intel Extreme Masters finals said it's only a matter of time before VR and esports converge. What are your thoughts, even though it's early for this game, of looking at VR and esports?
Well, I do agree with him that it's only a matter of time, because there's definitely a different barrier that you're crossing in VR. But as far as our game is concerned, I think we built it from the ground up to be fun, right? It was just about gameplay. But what we've seen here is that the competitiveness is naturally built in. We saw it at OC3 when we first showed it, and we've seen it in the past 7 months since we've showed it. So we can definitely see the VR sport aspect actually right now that is actually already building from the focus test, from the players, from everybody who's touched it. The question is going to be whether players out there, when they actually get the game, whether they will adhere to that, whether they will build that community, because ultimately that's what builds VR esports, and any esport. The community has to build it from the ground up, and that's what we'll wait to see if it happens.
And if they do that, how easy would it be to add a spectator mode for people to be on that in that arena with people to watch?
Oh, that's something that we've already thought of, because we already want to spectate on people that are playing right now. So for us, it's always a question of like, hey, if people are already playing, we always tell ourselves like, you know what, we just want to jump in just to see how that match is going. So it's already something that's in the back of our heads. It's already something we worked on just for ourselves. And yeah, if the demand is there, and if players actually want certain things out of it, and some things that they need, especially for the competitive side of it, we're more than happy to work at it and provide it to them.